The silverware clattered to the marble floor as Damian Pierce froze in place, his expensive watch catching the glow of the restaurant's chandeliers. Across the glass wall, a young girl, thin, trembling, and soaked by the late-night drizzle, pressed her small palm against the door. Her eyes, wide and pleading, locked onto his like an arrow to the chest. Damian's breath caught. Those eyes. He knew them. He had seen them once before, years ago, in a photograph he had tried to bury under mountains of money and business deals. The maitre d' moved to shoo the child away, his polished shoes squeaking on the marble, but Damian's voice cut through the dining room. Wait. The entire restaurant turned to stare. Damian, the untouchable billionaire whose very presence silenced boardrooms, now stood trembling like a man stripped of power. He crossed the floor in 3 long strides and swung open the door, the icy wind slapping his tailored suit. The girl shivered harder, her lips pale. "Mister, I'm hungry, please. Do you have any food?" Her voice was soft but steady, the kind that carried a strange dignity despite the desperation behind it. Damian crouched to meet her eyes, his chest tightening. "What's your name?" "Leah," she whispered, hugging herself against the cold. I just need something to eat." The name pierced through Damian like a shard of broken glass. Leah, a name from a promise broken decades ago. Only an hour earlier, Damian had been celebrating a record-breaking business deal. Surrounded by wine glasses and crystal plates, he had toasted his own brilliance while the city outside drowned in winter rain. Success was his armor. Wealth was his fortress. Nothing could touch him. Or so he thought. Now, kneeling before this little stranger, the fortress cracked. Leah's thin jacket clung to her shoulders, wet and torn, her sneakers soaked through. She looked about 7, maybe 8. The same age. The same haunting eyes as another child he had once abandoned without a second thought. Damian waved the maitre d' away and pulled off his cashmere coat, wrapping it gently around her. "Come inside," he said. The staff hesitated, uncomfortable with the sight of a billionaire escorting a ragged child into the exclusive dining room. Damian ignored them. He guided Leah to his table, pulling out a chair as if she were royalty. The other diners whispered, forks paused mid-air. A waiter approached, fumbling. Damian didn't look up. "Bring her whatever she wants. And hurry!" Leah sat stiffly, eyes darting around the glowing room. I don't have money," she said, her voice trembling. Damian's throat tightened. "You don't need money. Just eat." The waiter returned with warm bread and a steaming bowl of soup. Leah hesitated before taking the spoon, her small hands trembling as she lifted it to her lips. Damian watched silently, a storm brewing inside him. Each bite she took unearthed memories he'd spent years burying. 25 years ago, Damian was a very different man, a young dreamer with little more than a battered guitar and reckless love in his heart. Her name was Clarissa. She was beautiful, fierce, and determined to change the world. They were inseparable until Damian's ambition eclipsed their love. When Clarissa became pregnant, he panicked. He chose a career over commitment, walking away with a cold promise to send help that never came. Clarissa's last letter, returned unopened, had included a single photograph, a baby with dark, searching eyes. Eyes just like Leah's. Damian had burned that letter the night he closed his first $1 million deal. He told himself it was for the best, that Clarissa and the child would be fine without him. He built skyscrapers, bought islands, and drowned the echo of their names in champagne. But wealth couldn't erase guilt. And now, sitting across from this little girl, guilt returned with a vengeance. "Leah," he said carefully, "where are your parents?" Leah paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Mama's not here anymore," she said softly. She got sick. "And Daddy," she shook her head, a shadow crossing her face. "I don't know him. Mama said he left before I was born." The words struck like a hammer. Damian's vision blurred. His chest ached with a pain sharper than any business loss. Did your mama ever tell you his name?" he asked, though he already feared the answer. Leah shrugged, still focused on the soup. "She said he was rich and scared, but she said, It wasn't my fault. Damien's eyes burned. He gripped the edge of the table to keep from collapsing. Clarissa was gone. The child he'd abandoned was gone. And yet, here was Leah, a living echo of everything he'd lost. The restaurant seemed to fade around them, the clinking glasses and murmuring voices reduced to static. Damien saw only Leah, her resilience, her quiet dignity, her resemblance to a woman who once trusted him. Leah, he said again, voice shaking. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? Leah hesitated. Sometimes I stay at the shelter, but it's full tonight. Mama's friend lets me sleep on her couch when she can. Damien's heart clenched. He had spent billions on penthouses and yachts, yet this child, his blood or not, was fighting to survive in the cold. Without thinking, he reached across the table, gently taking her hand. You're not sleeping on a couch tonight, he said firmly. You'll come with me. I'll make sure you're safe. Leah froze, eyes wide. But why? You don't even know me. Damien swallowed hard. Because I think I do. They left the restaurant under a canopy of falling snow. Damien carried Leah in his arms, shielding her from the icy wind as photographers snapped from a distance. For once, Damien didn't care about headlines. Inside his limousine, Leah rested against his shoulder, her tiny frame trembling from exhaustion. Damien brushed a damp curl from her forehead and whispered, I'm sorry. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Leah tilted her head. For what? Damien stared out the window at the glittering city. For not being there when it mattered. Hours later, in the quiet warmth of his penthouse, Damien watched Leah sleep in a guest room larger than the apartment he'd grown up in. He thought of Clarissa, her laugh, her stubbornness, her love. He thought of the night he walked away. He would never know for certain if Leah was his granddaughter or simply fate's cruel reminder. But in that moment, the answer didn't matter. Wealth had built Damien an empire, but it had also built a prison around his heart. Leah's arrival shattered the walls. As dawn crept through the glass windows, Damien made a silent vow. He would find the truth. He would find Clarissa's family, if any remained. He would give Leah the life he'd once promised, but failed to deliver. For the first time in decades, Damien felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Not power, not control, but purpose. The city below stirred awake as Damien stood at the window watching the sunrise paint the skyline in gold. Behind him, Leah's soft breathing filled the room, a fragile sound, yet powerful enough to rewrite a billionaire's life. Damien Pierce, once untouchable and unrepentant, finally understood the weight of a single choice. He turned away from the window and whispered into the stillness. A promise this time unbreakable, never again.